So let's, I know we spoke to James a minute ago from South Africa, a predator. Let me just make sure he's still on the line there. James,
I'm still
can you hear
here.
me? Okay, great.
I can.
So why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself as well and talk about your situation?
Well, my name is James, and I'm a producer-editor in South Africa, in Johannesburg. I started the process of applying for my O-1 last year. I was producing a documentary which was based in San Francisco, and I ended up coming over and editing and finishing off the film for a production company who then made noises about employing me as their full-time producer. They've since changed their mind and they've actually shut down the company. So I'm in a kind of half position of having an O-1 started, but not having an agent or sponsor or representation in California. So I've actually come back to South Africa. I'm finishing off 2 films, and then hopefully coming back. But I'm looking for sort of professional representation.
I see. So that's the only piece of the puzzle that's missing for you is the sponsor?
Yeah, that's it.
Yeah, look, this is exactly what we do, you know, and it's funny how many people are in a similar situation to you, that they've got their visa tied to a single employer or a single company, and then if things go south, they're kind of stuck in the middle. The way we do things is that we sponsor your visa, we petition for you to work here, and then you can work for whoever you want, and they're not holding the proverbial gun to your head, because you know if you leave, you lose. And
That's
it
just
puts,
it, yeah.
you know, particularly people who are freelancers and who want to, you know, who aren't certain. You know, Zoe was saying, oh look, it's hard for me to know exactly what I'm doing 3 years in advance. I think that's kind of typical, you know. I think for the most part, we're getting a couple of productions together and then we're going to the next. And, you know, this is the life, if you will. So
Absolutely.
look, I completely relate to what you're going through. Yeah. Did you have any specifics about like your case and sort of, you know, where you've got to with that?
Well, I mean, I have all the paperwork in line, and I also have most of my professional, I guess, published proof or evidence in place as well. The big thing for me is finding that petitioner who I can rely on, so that I'm not always looking over my shoulder when looking for work.
Well, that's it, and that's again, Raquel hit on this at the beginning, that the O-1 can be filed as an employer or as an agent, and for most people who want to work, you know, for multiple companies, that's the way to go. And you know, there are agencies out there. You know, if you were, say, an award-winning editor, or if you had won an Oscar or what have you, there are professional, you know, movie agencies for this sort of stuff. But what they're doing is they're charging you a commission on everything they earn, and you know, they really do hold the keys. I think for people who are at that transitional place or are looking to come to New York to make the next level, make the next step, a company like this sort of fills that void for them.
And do I have to be in the same state as say you in order for it to work, or can I be in any state?
Raquel?
Yeah, you can be in any state. You can be in any state. In fact, maybe it's a little technical, but it's much better to have a petitioner on the East Coast than to have one on the West Coast, because essentially there's 2 service centers that process these O-1 visas. One's in Vermont and one's in California. And if you draw a line straight down the states, everything to the East goes to Vermont, everything to the West goes to California, and California is notorious for being horrendous with the processing of actually all visa petitions and not just O-1s, whereas Vermont is much more uniform and consistent. So what we generally do too is, you know, we'll prepare the case with our office address as on behalf of the petitioner, and then all cases go to Vermont. So certainly you can have a petitioner that's only, you know, in New York, and then you can work anywhere in the States.
That's great. Wow.
again, and that's the life of the freelancer as well. You sort of go where the work is. So, that's another
Exactly.
reason why it makes a lot of sense. Yeah.
I just want to pipe in there just really quickly, because when you use the word freelance with the O1s, it can raise a couple flags, and I just think it's important that you understand that when these cases are prepared with an agent-style petition, which allows you to work for multiple employers within that one petition, well, we can call it freelance in this meeting here, but we can't really talk about it that way legally, because legally freelance is prohibited on all temporary work visas. But when you set up an O1 visa with an agent as a petitioner, you have the closest thing to freelance possible. And we can set it up in ways and add language to the petition that allows you to take on additional projects as they arise over the course of the O1. So that to you it may seem like freelance, right? But to the Immigration Service it certainly isn't, and everything is lined up and the language is in the case to allow you to take on projects. Just want to make that note because it's important.
Oh, absolutely. And when we talk about language here, I'm just going to actually bring up a slide that we prepared earlier about the list of terms you should use in recommendation letters. People are going to ask, it's a really important part of the process. You've got to get letters from people you've worked with or people that can attest to your ability. And, we sort of suggest people should avoid words like promising career, great potential, great future, something that implies the person is young. Alternatively, they should use extraordinary ability, or one of a few who have reached the top of their field, or a small percentage of those who have risen to the top. The language you use in these letters needs to sort of suggest a certain distinguished reputation.
Yes, exactly. Because at the end of the day, the O1 is for professionals in their industry who have risen to the top. So anything that would distract the reader from thinking that you're already established is good to avoid in general.
Okay, and you said to avoid the term freelance.
Yes.
Is contractor or is consultant a more consistent term there, or?
That's absolutely fine. Right. It's a matter of when you're going to the embassy or the consulate, or you're at the port of entry, and they may ask you questions about your O1. You want to make sure you don't throw out the term freelance, because that's going to automatically raise a flag. Anything else is fine. You're allowed to work for multiple employers. You can be a contractor, a consultant, whatever you like. But just in terms of the word freelance, it's just not permitted. So even though the case appears to be one that is almost identical to a freelance job, the term is just it's in conflict with immigration law. So any other term is fine.
Okay, that's a great inside baseball term to know. So let me, while we got you here, let's take in a couple more emailed questions here. How many letters of recommendation do you recommend? Ravi from India asks.
So in general, it's a whole package, right? If we're looking at the O1 visa petition as a whole, 95% of the case is about the individual's achievements, and they're all going to be documented. So let's say someone's behind the scenes. He's a producer, he's an editor, or director, what have you. You're not going to get a lot of media coverage that discusses him personally, right? You're not going to get a lot of awards that maybe talk about that, or that person received that award for editing, right? The film might get recognition, or the lead actors would, but not necessarily that individual. So in those circumstances, you're looking at a much heavier load of recommendation letters, because A, they provide expert testimonials as to your skills and talents, but B, they're also gap fillers, where if the film won an award and you were the editor on it, well, a letter of recommendation from the director that connects the dots between the film and your critical role with that film will then give you credit for that award. So I would say in general, you definitely want to shoot for a lot. For people who are editors, screenwriters, producers, directors, you're looking probably around 15 letters, let's say. I mean, again, I'm just shooting in the dark here because it really depends on the other types of evidence you have, and you may have awards with your name on it. But if you're an actor or a photographer and you get the recognition directly, then you might not need as many letters to bolster the case, because you have other types of evidence to help support it.
I mean, is there a minimum number that you would say, don't put any less than X? Or
Not
does it
really.
really just depend? Yeah, okay.
It depends also on the quality of the letter, right? Because they're looking to see who's writing the letter, how does this person know your work, and what do they have to say. So, I mean, I was in a situation where, somebody was working, he had a close friend who was working on Saturday Night Live, and he could get a fantastic letter from, an actor on the show, but the letter ended up just saying, he's a great guy, and basically, and it was useless, right, because it didn't say much. So it really depends on who's writing it, what the letter contains. Immigration is not concerned with the fact, about character references or anything like that. They want to see documentation through these letters that show that you've performed a critical role, that you're unique, that you're one of a kind, and that you've already received significant recognition, either in your home country or another country or internationally. So there's no real minimum, because if you get 5 amazing letters from major superstars who the immigration officer is sitting in a cubicle in Vermont would know, then that will open his eyes and wake him up a little bit, versus, let's say, 20 letters from unknowns who are, more middle-level actors or directors or whomever, and he wouldn't know who they are, and they don't really say much to, your talent. So it's not about numbers as much as quality, and you really want to reach out to your best connections and references that you have.